All right. Hello, everybody. This is Ceremonial Witch, and I believe this is on Ceremonial Witchcraft. How's everybody doing tonight? I can honestly say I'm all right. You know, shit happens, and then you roll with the punches, and you get happy, and then you get mad, and you know the trick is to just kind of try to stay happy, I guess. That's the best bet if you're trying to create with your mind. So, last few episodes, one being on the no bullshit occult shit, I replayed it on the regular channel, so that was cool. It seems to be getting on those platforms I was worried about, and I uploaded all the links to Tumblr. I tried to do it to Twitter, but you know, who knows how to use those things? I certainly don't. But anyways, I guess I don't really know what I'm going to talk about right now, because I'm having a hard time not trying to use occultism, using the mind, and, you know, connecting it to anatomy and disproving coronavirus. And I don't mean disproving it, because I think if someone has this violent strand of coronavirus, if it is such a thing, then and they're either elderly and don't have a strong immune system, or already have another thing attacking their immune system, then they have they have a reason to maybe, you know, worry. And I think it's insensitive for all the rest of us who pretend that we should be worried, and we're going in fight or flight and freaking out and buying all this shit paper. I think it's insensitive to people that are, you know, dying. You know, someone recently around here passed away from the coronavirus, but he had leukemia. You know, there's very seldomly do people come back from leukemia. My aunt passed from it 5 years ago now, maybe more. It's a hard thing. They go fast. So, you know, to spin off, it's the 60 or I forget how old he was. And, you know, to anybody, if I'm speaking to anybody who's related to him, my condolences go out to you. It's never fun to lose a family member, but you know, it's not right to say coronavirus took him out, whenever if the leukemia had made his immune system weak, he wouldn't be taken out. So I have a hard time not talking about this, because I walk around outside and I see people. Sorry, I keep yawning. I see a lot of people like me that are not in fear, and I love it. But the majority of the people out there are in fear. They're scared to get close to people, which is fine. You know, you shouldn't be too close to anybody anyways. They're wearing the gloves, and you know, I know a few nurses, dated a few nurses. The one I saw today I didn't date, but you know, she could tell she was wearing gloves, and she's looking at other people not wearing gloves, and ugh. It wouldn't even be worth my time to explain to them why they need gloves, because I'm a nurse and I know. And I have nothing against nurses. You guys are performing admirably. You guys are doing your fucking thing. You're holding down the fort. You got probably one of the most hardest jobs right now with this shit going on, and dealing with people in this frenzy and this pandemic fanatic panic state. So don't get that twisted. I think you guys are amazing. But I do think, you know, if you're wearing the gloves to protect yourselves from us because you're dealing with people, then that's great too. Whatever, all the power to you. I'm not saying people shouldn't go around wearing gloves, especially if you think you may have a weak immune system or not. I don't like the fact that my society is so uninformed that they just take the talking head's word to the bank. You know, they just believe what they're told, and that's that. You know, nothing can live outside of what they're told by them. It's like, Jesus, come on, figure it out. Not everybody's the same. First and foremost, I made that clear when it comes to veganism, when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to talents, your birth chart, everything. No two people are the same. So the things I talk about on here that might help the people listening to me, well, the people listening to me might have a lot of the same attributes that I do. like does tend to attract like. Simple as that. Also, opposites tend to attract. Different reasons, different dimensions, different realms. But all within this same realm. Within our realm, there's spiritual and there's the physical. You know, and then there's everything else above that. You know, the new Frozen movie. I'm not going to comment on, you know, the movie itself, but the fact that she had to fight the elements or conquer the elements to become the fifth element, and she needed her sister, two halves of the mind, to do that was pretty telling. Like, I literally stood up in my living room in front of my family and said, my God, guys, they're spelling it out for us. Like, thank you, Disney, for all the bad things said about Disney, man. I mean, that was pretty clear cut. You know, the first movie, fear-based, she was in total fear. She had to learn to control her fear. She had to get into love. Okay, once she got into love, does that mean everything's hunky-dory after? No. Next movie, she's got to go and you know, not take the ride, or not take the reins, not the ride, basically, you know. Not just cruise along with her new powers and abilities, because the sun, the planets, the chakras, the energies, the earth, it's not going to let you do that. You're not going to be allowed to just cruise along. You got to start figuring out, okay, earth, water, wind, air, what do these things mean to me? Where do I have issues with these elements? And how do I become in control as much as I can control them? This is why we do ritual magic. In ritual magic, we are calling the elements to us in our circle to be by our side. We also have the archangels there by our side. We have watchers there. We have the elements and the elementals. That's the element itself, and a spirit there. These things are all by our sides. When we do magic, when we use planets, we are using these elements. And this is the simile, metaphor, correspondent, if you will, to Elsa fighting a water horse, or that little salamander fucking guy. That's like that would be the fire dude she fought. You know what I mean? She is conquering the elements because she can't do it by herself. None of us can do it by ourselves. We are made up of these elements. These elements are in our body. Mars is, you know, fire more than the sun is. The sun would be air. So is Saturn, and so is Mercury, so to speak. But then down below in water, we also have Jupiter, and we have the moon down there. Technically, if Tiamat was still around kicking, she would be down there too. It would be 3 against 3, except it's 3 against 2. But in that sense, Mercury has kind of evolved to be able to attach to all these elements. And Mercury is like, to me anyways, is the wild card that we gotta aspire to be, to use, you know. He's to connect to the Archangel Michael, but not exclusively. Mercury can connect to, Scorpio by, he owns the caduceus, that's the 2 snakes, and it makes the number 8 going up. Well, that is so significant, it's unbelievable, those 2 things wrapping around, going up. That means so much. And it's everywhere throughout society, but it just means so much. It has so many levels, just that one thing. But that's like Mercury connecting to either the moon or Jupiter, if you want to look at it that way. But Mars also rules Scorpio. So right in there, you got Mercury being air, and then you got fire, and then you got these 2 water guys right there, right? And Mercury is the only one that, is he rules Gemini, and Gemini is the twins. It's 2 faces, It's 2 sides, deceptive, Well, that's human nature. Anyways, point is, that movie was basically spelling it out to you. And that's just me. I didn't even watch the whole thing. I just know that little bit that I told you about it. And, I'm sure I could pull out a whole lot more in there that had to happen. But, she had to conquer those elements, and that's what we have to do. So, if right now we have a coronavirus. Okay, well, what's a coronavirus? Well, let's think about it. It's being spread by air. Okay. Well, I think the first one she fought was water. but you know, the opposite of water would be air. I don't know which one she first fought. Point is, air is the one that you conquer after Earth. Okay, so it's pretty close to it. So maybe all the collective magicians on the planet right now, we're all past neophyte, past Earth stage, and now we're getting an air attack, basically. Let's just say that, and this is what we have to do. And it doesn't matter if this is true or not. Let's use this programming and beat this thing. Anybody who can beat this, who cannot go into fear of this and let it control them, who can rise above it, who can even help others rise above it, it's like beating your fucking air grade. You are going to become more. Because, you know, as much as great it is to follow curriculum, sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. We've seen lots of movies where, you know, Jedis and superheroes, and he's too old to be a Jedi, or he's too old to do this, or he didn't have all the training, or he doesn't have this, but yet they get a crash course in tragedy, and then it makes them jump a level, basically, and then they're able to get to the next plane, and they get to the next part of the life, and you know, all the things they would have learned within that curriculum happened for them. You know, it doesn't have to be through the book itself. Now, the book is a great guideline to go through, and while doing that, you're going to learn specific things you may not have learned otherwise, and doing that is going to tell your subconscious mind, divine, whoever, that you're ready for these life lessons. So either way, it's going to happen. And I have this feeling that I'm back and forth all the time, okay? I say this a lot. I got the Libra scales, and you know, those Libra scales, and I got the Gemini with the moon enhancing my Gemini. I got my Venus. Venus is in Gemini, and I also have the moon in Gemini. So the moon kind of mimics whatever it's in. It's reflective, right? So it's like Venus looking at Venus whenever it's in Gemini, right? Gemini has two faces, so both sides of me are both this Venus moon side, right? Anyway, so what that means to me, how I look at that is when I start talking, when I start thinking consciously anyways, I break down things from both angles, and I try to do it, and I try to tear apart my own arguments. I try to get both sides equally. And you know, even with this coronavirus and me going out in public and being like, man, people are stupid and ignorant, I can see the benefits of it, though. I can see the benefits of it. I don't like people being isolating. I don't like people having to stay in their house. I don't like people dying. None of that. But I do like the fact that people might have to, you know, see through the lies and see through the shit. Because, you know, here's the thing on top of this, okay? I'm going to push away the magic for a second, but if people don't know, there's some places where you can look, and it's very hard to find now, but I found it, other people found it, and something about Russia declared war on Austria just recently. Basically took land and, you know, our land, and so they're at war. And I guess the Americans, I think, are backing up Russia. Now, I can't tell you if that's true or not, and I don't want to tell you if that's true or not, because I don't want to be the person who starts conspiracy/rumor. But, well, what happens in war times? Well, I've lived through one before, but not one they're trying to hide. But anyways, World War II, you know, you would stop traveling. Other people from being able to travel, use the skies, right? Only international things. Why is that? Well, if there's a war going on, you don't want people to get hurt. You don't want mail to be coming through. You don't want random people coming through your borders in case they're a spy going to hold somebody hostage, or, you know, because there are a lot of truths, and people can be well-trained assassins or things like that. There are some definite truths in there, and to what extent I can't tell you, but you let people in your borders that you don't know. Well, there's been small groups in history that have taken down cities and governments. So you lock down the border, you lock down everything, right? You get your people to stay in their house as much as possible. And I'm not trying to make anybody fearful, trust me, I'm just shooting it out there as a possibility that something bigger than Corona is happening. I know there's something with the oil too. Saudi Arabia and Russia wanted to keep the oil prices at a certain set, and the United States has been flooding the market with cheaper oil. That's hence why our fucking gas prices are low. And they both kind of sat beside and said, hey, it's okay. We can wait it out. Whenever you run out, you'll be back to us, and we're going to maybe sell to you even more. Fuck it. We're okay with this shit. But anyways, so that mixed in with this war thing. And I mean, I talked to the guys at work, and all their stocks have been dropping. Stock market crash. We've been hearing stuff about that. Well, that also happened. There's a depression that happened right before the war, right? After the war as well. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen. A lot of things happening right now are very equivalent to a wartime. Now, if they didn't want you to know that we were going to war, what would be the best way to distract you? Well, let's say it's a pandemic virus that is killing people, that is actually doing it. Who knows? Maybe it's fucking chemical fucking warfare, and we're being attacked and from somewhere else that we have no idea. Once again, another conspiracy. I'm not trying to start that. I'm just trying to open people's eyes up that coronavirus is the least of your fucking worries, because if you are the type that listens to the media and thinks they're telling you the truth, you are so far gone and ignorant. It's unbelievable. Now, I don't feed into this stuff because I don't want it to be part of my reality, but I'm not so naive to know and understand that this is something bigger than what they're pretending it to be. It's bigger than a virus. Way bigger. And they don't want us to know. They show you what the left hand's doing so the right hand can get away with something even worse. I've been saying this about the chemtrails. I've been saying this about Trump. I've been saying this about everything. It's called the red herring. You give the people the answer, the criminal, what they want, and they're pacified with that. You get people to stay home and hide and only watch the news, and all the news is covering is this. Even the news is shutting down and not covering as much, only on this. Why is that? There's a reason for this shit. There's never been this much bullshit associated to a virus before, and we've had some doozies. In 1986, the swine flu came out, and the government said we're going to vaccinate everybody, and the insurance company said we can't insure to vaccinate everybody, and then they said, well, we'll insure everybody, and then they vaccinated everybody, but there was no fucking swine flu. There was nothing there. There's more people that died from the vaccination than the actual flu that was going around, or so-called flu. You might want to look that up. It might help you out. That was the year I was born. So there was some fucked up shit that happened there. There's a lot of that similarity happening today. I'm not saying we were injected with something, but there could have been something we've been exposed to recently that might be causing some effects to certain people. Who the fuck knows? And maybe the people that meditate and do magic correctly don't really have to worry because we're breathing correctly, we're eating and drinking correctly, that our body is in tip-top shape. And the rest of the people are not, so they can perish. So how do you attack someone who's in tip-top shape? Well, you got to get into the mind. Because if the mind is too strong to allow their bullshit in, well, then they can't get in. You can't get into my... No one could attack me because my mind is too strong. I will listen to you, but I won't believe you until I do my own research or whatever I need to do. You put a gun to my head and say, believe me now, bitch. I'm going to say, okay, but it's just going to be fake. I'm not going to actually believe you. I'm not like that. I am a strong person. I am the strong that, unfortunately, will survive longer than the weak. And I want to uplift people and get them to no longer be weak. Unfortunately, you can't force this stuff on people, especially when they're not thinking correctly, because they're in fight or flight. So the only way to keep going is hopefully just keep talking about magic and not this fucking virus, so that people still find my channel and not keep reading redundant, talking over again, and I lose followers, I lose people watching and all that. But it is very hard for me not to, because it's bugging me, because there's more going on, and I can't be the only one that sees it. Well, I know I'm not, because I've watched things from other sites, and that's where I got my ideas, but, you know, there's like 10 people then, plus me, 11, that think there's more going on than this. And I don't mean that it's just a money scam and all that, although that's certainly true. Walmart is certainly benefiting off of this. And likewise, every other company, anybody sells Lysol, shit like that, toilet paper. So, I don't want to keep beating this over with a hat. But, as I get something important that can help you, I will say it. But I think I've said all I need to say. You know, I've given you the whole Advil fucking thing to watch out for. I've given you, you know, the whole stress thing to not do so you don't weaken your immune system. I give you different things I would do if I'm trying to strengthen my immune system. Everything from eating oranges, vitamin C to, you know, fucking, sorry, I'm just fucking lagging out a bit here. Spells and sigils and candle magic and shit like that. Having a candle burning continuously, just, you're not even saying what you're protected from, that you're protected. You can be vague. All viruses, illnesses, diseases, you know. Don't say just you're protected from this one thing, because then something else will slip in. Or a variant will come. You don't want that. It's kind of like if you ever borrowed from one of those loan places and then you put a stop payment on before they go to take the money you owe them out. You know, they take the money out under a different name that they're licensed to use. You know what I mean? You don't want to do that. If you say you're protected against COVID-19, well then maybe you're going to get the COV2, which is what causes COVID-19. So you were protected from COVID-19 initially, but first you had to get COV2, and then that's going to turn into the 19. So let's not do that, go down that path. And I tried to say that earlier in a previous episode, but I didn't say it like that. But anyways, a few episodes ago, what I wanted to talk about was gods. All the many gods, and why it's important to believe in a god. Frater Xavier says, you'd be well served believing in a god. Your magic will work better if you believe in a god. And I kind of wanted to elaborate on what I think he means, or when he said that, what it meant for me, and how I use that idea, that principle, to my benefit. And it's simply put that, you know, well, first of all, magic, witchcraft mainly, we don't worship one deity. To me, we don't worship any deity, but we use all deities. We're trying to get all deities on our minds to see what they can do for us. Because there's many deities that were created, and then we can create our own, and we can implant them into our mind to go out and do something. That egregore that we create was created with our subconscious mind. And through our subconscious mind into our reality, it goes and does what we want. Well, likewise, if you take on a deity, Diana, Hecate, you know, whoever, well, that's basically what's happening. You're either trying to get wisdom from her for your path, for your initiation, for whatever, or you're trying to accomplish something. So you give this deity offerings through your subconscious mind, and then she, through your subconscious mind, brings stuff into your reality that you consciously get. That's the point. So if you're an atheist trying to do magic, you can use affirmations and get it, but sometimes it's just easier to do the easier way. And like I said, I've given more than enough information for you to believe in a deity in a sense that it's a real thing, because we have the power to create anything, and yet it's not above us. It's technically our creation. So for anybody who's atheistic, well, I don't think that would be a hard concept to wrap your head around, because you're not necessarily believing in an almighty God. You know what I mean? You're believing in a God that serves a specific purpose. You're breaking these things down. So what happens is Christians go to one God, ask for shit, and they've broken it down to saints. But that's probably the best way to look at it. All the saints have a different job. Kind of like all these deities have a different job. Right? And then that's like ancestor work almost, to a certain extent. And then planetary magic is what you would do whenever you want bigger things, in my opinion. And then that's why there are bigger saints, and then there's Mary, and then there's Jesus, Holy Spirit, and then there's God. Those are for the bigger tasks, you know. So Holy Spirit, the three, right? The Trinity. There's three right there, plus Mary makes four. And then, you know, well, Satan would make five, and that would be your pentagram that you should be wishing on. But that would be your 5 major things. But somewhere in there, there's 7 main ones you should be asking and talking to. But anyways, we're not getting into that. But my episode is going to be a whole lot more detail on that fact that if you're taking on deities, don't be scared of the deities. Don't think the deities are going to do anything to you. Okay? You can control these deities. You have the power to do that. You don't need to do this. You can literally just put sigils into your mind and, get the sigils to work for you. You can write on candles what you want to the planets, and that'll also work for you. But it's not really any different than what I'm asking for. What I'm saying is just the planets are energies within your body. So you're honoring your body in a sense. The Jupiter chakra in your body, you're giving an offering to, respecting your body, your anatomy, as above, so below. Therefore, it manifests through you. But, that's kind of how it works. That's why we have the ability to believe whatever we want, create whatever beliefs we want. This is why there's no one true way to do anything. There's no one absolute truth out there that's going to give you this, So if you're the type of person that's looking through all these magics right now and haven't started yet, start. Do yourself a favor and just start. And you can keep the reading after, but start a fucking daily practice. Do those, the lesser banishing, the Kabbalistic cross. It's going to give you this, So if you're the type of person that's looking through all these magics right now and haven't started yet, start. Do yourself a favor and just start. And you can keep the reading after, but start a fucking daily practice. Do those, the lesser banishing, the Kabbalistic cross, the middle pillar, close the circle. Get familiar with trust me, with the archangels. You want to. It doesn't matter what they are. It doesn't matter if they're thugs for God in the old Bible. It doesn't matter if they were ancient demons. It doesn't matter what they are. What they are for people using ritual magic is guardians. Guardian angels. They guard. So nothing bad can come in and fuck around with your circle. More than that, you can call on Archangel Raphael for healing. You can call on Archangel Michael for protection. You can call on Archangel Raphael or Raphael, Michael, Gabriel for emotional healing potentially. There's quite a few things. And the same thing with Oriel. She would be the Earth one. There's a lot of things you can. If you look this up, there's more angels than you can shake your stick at. But just like demons, you can call onto these things, and it doesn't matter how you actualize it. I have a pantheon where all these things exist. I could technically ask fire for something and probably get it if I believe in it enough. And someone said, "Well, Corey, you can't ask fire. Fire is an element you use to bring stuff in, and that's what the elements are." And absolutely, they are. Abso-fucking-lutely. The water I do magic with. The air I do magic with. The earth I do magic with. The fire, the water, the air, the earth. Anyways, I do magic with all those. Also with spirit, visualizations in my head and shit like that, and dreams and whatever else. That's probably not necessarily exactly correct, but you know what I mean. But it doesn't matter. There are fire spirits, which is what, Aries could be, or Mars, or I forget the name of the fairies. But anyways, point is, it doesn't matter what you want to do, what you want to use. If you want to manifest, you can manifest anything. Now, in my opinion, if you're just beginning, use something that you resonate with, that has been used by a lot of people, because there's power in it. By default, I guess. By just the more minds that have used something and had results, there's more power in that. That doesn't mean you can't create your own. You can create your own programming for eating mock chicken sandwiches. Means you're going to get $20 a week later. I'm telling you, you do that long enough, it'll fucking happen. Sure as shit. Because you're writing it into your world. And then that's kind of like what I want my no bullshit occult shit show to be about. Is being about what are the do's and don'ts of just, any type of magic, and why these things may or may not work. In my opinion, I'm not going to have all the answers, and I'm not an adept, like I said, but I am in the air fucking grade right now. So that's why the whole fighting the air thing kind of came to mind when I talked about that. But what the point is, There are certain things that I know that absolutely work. And programming something into your mind and removing programming that stops you from getting stuff absolutely works. And it's not that fucking hard. Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza explain it in a scientific way, so fucking simple. It's mind-blowing. You know, it doesn't have to be hard at all. You don't have to see a hypnosis. You can go to bed with your iPhone that you recorded something on a loop over and over and over and over again, every single fucking night, doing that. Writing down in the day what you want to happen and what you want to be gone. And, you know, the outcome that happened, and adding gratitude. And you can do your temple work, and you can reject, banish, deny anytime you get thoughts in your head that come close to that. If you do that, you diligently do that with discipline for like 2 to 3 fucking weeks, you will have whatever you want. You'll at least have the beginning signs that it's coming to happen. You know, and like Peterson says, if you don't have goals, if you don't have aims, if you don't have something to strive for, if you just, what's the point, you know, about life? You're like that, well then, that sucks. But this gives you a point, okay? Because you can become nihilistic and depressed whenever you are, when you're in magic, because it happens. You know, you realize you can manifest whatever you want, but then the things that you before were like, oh, I manifest a car, a house, girls, you know, the ability to sleep around with my wife not figuring it out, something like that. That's what floats your boat. But, you know, you don't want those things anymore because you know there's something more you need to do because you've been touched by that spirit, that force. You know, there's something powerful there. Whereas before you didn't know, you know, you wanted all those things because you didn't know there was a higher power. You know, you were told there was, but you had no proof. But then all of a sudden, you start meditating, you start doing ritual, or you do a specific thing like candle magic or a sigil, and you're using your own mind, and then you get something back. And it's like, well, how is that being touched by the divine? Well, if you didn't understand how it's touched by the divine, well, okay, I'll explain it for you. I won't call you stupid, but I'll explain it to you. We are made in his image, is what the Bible says. It says it a lot of other places. But even if you don't want to believe in that, that's fine. But something created us. We were made from something. Okay? Doesn't matter what that is. We were made from something. And if we can use our mind to create our world, well, then that guy who created us gave us that power. Right? Or girl or force. Okay? That force gave us this power. Okay? So it loves us because it wants us to be able to do whatever we want. That's like a father giving a son, you know, all the love in the world, all the encouragement in the world, all the abilities in the world, giving it there's no way you can fail. That's how much I love you kind of thing, right? That's what was given to us. That's what we have. But then obstacles got put in our way because maybe either it knew, whatever it is, either it knew that we can't just have everything we want and be happy. It's not the way it works. The only way to get something and be happy that you got it is through earning it, right? If you don't earn something, it's just given to you, and it's great to have it, you know? But, you know, get that $1 million that you win, well, you're more likely to piss it away than if you saved up, put it in the bank, and it's like when you go to spend that money, it's like, well, no, I really don't want to spend it. Like, I worked hard on it, and when it's all gone, it's gone, you know? That's kind of what I mean. But back to the point, you know you've been touched by the ultimate spirit, God, force, the creator, because you realize that the creator gave you those gifts, that the creator works within you. I'm not trying to sound churchy, but the point is, once you can depolarize from this material realm, at least a little bit, then you can start using the heavens and the gifts that we were given that have been hidden from us, made occult. So that's why we are occultists, because we are now using the hidden gifts that are no longer hidden to us. And when you start using that, you understand that there is a force out there that loves us. But it's not a force coming back to save us. It's giving us the ability to save ourselves. But through that, we've forgotten, or people have conned us and tricked us down the line. So we have opposition against us that doesn't want us to realize this power, or they don't believe that any of us have this power. It could be one or the other. It could be a little bit of both. But there is something to that effect going on. Therefore, we need to do this properly. And this is why it's hard to just start going for random, meaningless things whenever you get manifestation, because you're so overwhelmed. And, it's like all those times of praying or whatever I ever did to whatever God, never really got an answer. I do this fucking sigil and I get it right away. And it was me. It just basically tells you that, okay, well, that force is out there. It's just we were told the wrong way to do it. Well, what's that about? Well, you can stay focused on that and get all bitter, or you can realize that it doesn't matter. I found the right way out now. It's never too late. I can teach others, and I can repair my life and the lives of those around me. And then if you are doing that correctly, then you will have no problems whatsoever. But unless, obviously, you have programming that goes against that. But in the same sense, you now have the abilities to remove that. So there's really no excuse to not believe in something. I'm not saying you need to believe in the pantheon of gods, the planets, the Bible, Quran, any of that shit. But if you have manifested something, or at least trying to, well, when you do, you're gonna know what I mean. It's pretty profound. When I first started just seeing all the 1111s around everywhere, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then psychology fucking explained it to me. I was like, yeah, okay, I get that. But I don't watch videos about that anymore, and it still happens all the time. I'll be thinking in my head, like, fuck, should I ask for a sign? And I look at the clock, and boom, there it is. And it happens so often. There's so many different ways it happens. It's remarkable. But that's how you know there's things around you helping you. It doesn't matter how you want to conceptualize it. I have so many fucking weird to I think scientific ways I rationalize it, but none of it matters, because all of it is just theories. I can give you this theory and you can eat it up, hook, line, sinker, and believe it. But if one of my facts were wrong in there, well, then most of what I said was wrong, and therefore we came up with a false assumption. And that's what happens in today's day and age, especially with a lot of this shit that's going on. But I guess this is going to be a short episode, because I'm not prepared to talk about anything yet, and I just want to make that clear that I don't want to keep going over and over and over on coronavirus. But I did want to give something, and the something I'm trying to give is the fact that if you have manifested something, and there's an energy out there, and that energy has given you the go-ahead to create what you want, okay? If you were trying to manifest something and it hasn't happened yet, well, there's something else that needs to be done first. Whether it's something within you that needs to change, you need to do more transformation, you need to hold off a little bit longer because maybe there's something more important. Maybe you're already getting that money more than you already asked. Who knows? The point is, there is something out there, and it would be beneficial to you to just pick something, define something as a God. Doesn't matter which one. And when I say God, I don't even mean all that is. I mean just a God. Whatever God is in line with ever. Because I said in the last episode, figure out where you've been programmed against. Okay? All the bad things you can't do. If you have trouble hanging on to money, if you don't think you're ever going to own a house, if you don't think you're ever going to have a wife, if you don't think you're ever going to have a car that works well, well, then you've had some kind of programming saying that you're never going to have nice things, you're never going to be like a regular person, something to that effect. You need to remove that. You can always do divination to figure out, what it is you need to remove. You can use automatic writing. Start writing about all those things and just keep writing, and then eventually something might pop. Meditate on it, get the questions. But in all honesty, I would just point blank say that shit. I reject, banish, and deny all areas that are holding me back from prospering financially, and I replace it and invoke, and I am grateful that I am now earning every day in increasing amounts, whatever amount you want for services provided, and then this is the compensation received. I will be, so won't it be, for you. Something to that effect. You listen to that over and over and over and over again. You know, it can be as simple as that. Or you can literally break it down to, I remove this program, I remove these programs, I remove these programs. Listen to it over and over and over and over and over again. Use it on a waning a waning moon, when the moon is slowly shedding itself. And then boom, it starts over. It starts growing, and that's when you start adding stuff in. Right when you get to the end, boom, you add the most. I've said it before, I think the moon is kind of like a meter. You know, like in any golf game, hockey game, whatever. Sometimes, especially golf, you'll line up your shot, and then there'll be a meter up and down. You know, it's more powerful when it's up, less powerful when it's down. Okay, well, not really the case, because it's less powerful in one direction whenever, you know, it's waning, but it's more powerful in the getting rid of stuff direction, right? And then likewise, it's more powerful getting stuff whenever it's going to full, but it's less powerful whenever it's at the bottom. But this is whenever it's the meter you go by, right? So you're banishing stuff out of your life. After that full moon, it's starting to decrease. And then right at that last night before the new moon, that's when you completely banish it. But you could have been saying those affirmations the whole time, all the way through that part. That's what I would do. That's what I've done, and it's what's worked. So right after the full moon, you know, we'll get to that in a second. But right after the day after the full moon, that's when you start banishing. So you see every night, you listen to that recorder, you write it down, whatever. And it's, you know, every 14 days. It goes from waxing to waning, waxing to waning, waxing to waning. So it's not that long. So for 2 weeks, you're shedding off whatever program you want gone. And then boom, new moon hits. And then now you are adding the new programming. Full moon hits. Boom, you do a ritual for the full moon, for you having that new programming in. Then once again, if you want to really make sure it happens, you start doing the waning moon part again. You know, removing either the same or something of similar, you know, you wrote it similarly. And so it's like a guide. You can use the fucking moon as a guide. You're banishing shit out of your life while ever it's the day after the full moon till it's the new moon, and then from the new moon to the full moon, you know what I mean? That's your guiding system. Plus, once you get to that full moon, your power is full power. Also, if you're trying to manifest things, you know, especially if you're using sexual energy or anything like that, you know, I don't say to do this all the time, you know, but right after that full moon, right? At the full moon, I would say that's when you release that sexual energy and put it all into your manifestation if you want it to go, like, work really well. And then, you know, the day after you can have sex again, and the day after you can have sex again. But then, you know, whenever you're getting closer to the next stage, you know, of releasing everything, well, stay absent for a while and then release it, you know. And then, you know, a couple of days in a row there again too if you want, but then hold it in again, and then whenever you want to bring something in your life, boom, release it, you know. Use that fire projective energy as much as you want for those things. But, you know, anyways, but that's how I would use the moon for removing and replacing programming. And it works because that's how I did it. And I used to do all my spells like that. I still do, but not quite as well because I don't need now, like, in all honesty, I keep it so simple. I keep, like, visualizations before bed and upon waking up, as long as in the middle of the day, like, have me at my altar or other places, and then I write on the candle what I want. So, and then in my visualization, I bring that candle and I give it to whoever it's offered to, you know what I mean? Shit like that. And it's as simple as I need to have it because it's still working, you know? But in the beginning, I had all this information and I didn't take any courses from anybody, so I didn't know how to do anything. I had all this information about how to use the moon, right? How to do ritual magic, how to do candle magic, but I didn't know how to put it all together. It was just a bunch of information. It's like, well, how do I put this together? And I'm so thankful that I didn't go see anybody and use their way, because, you know, I probably would have worked, because there's so many people that send in to Frater saying thank you and his ways work. So by all means, if you're maybe not as creative as I am or don't want to put in that work, then, you know, buy a program. But I figured it out on my own. I used the moon in that sense. I did the recording thing from what I learned from Birch. And then what I would do is every time I'd write a different statement in 10 or different affirmation or whatever, I would just add it on to that, you know. And then before I knew it, I had this huge thing, all these affirmations going over and over in my head every single fucking night. And you know, and then I was using the moon that way, but then I would use specific hours and different planets for different things as well. But I would still always incorporate the moon into those things, into those spells. So, and this all works so well. I think for just, you know, simple manifestation stuff, you know, use the full moon because she's going to give it to you, especially if it's a necessity. But for programming, I think the moon is perfect for that. Moving programming, because literally that's what she's doing. She's shedding off and then she's adding on to herself. She's shedding off and adding on to herself, you know. Well, what do you want to do? Well, you want to shut off programming, add on new programming. So I think she's perfect for that. I think that's what's great about it. And it's this meter in the sky that tells you where it is. So say you've forgotten to do a few things, you look up, it's like, okay. The next day you look up and it's a little bit less. Okay, we're going down to the new moon. It means we're in a banishing phase. Okay, well, I got a few more days. What do I need to get rid of out of my life, you know? And so what? You only have 5 days. Well, that's 5 days of, you know, trying to get something out of your system. Sometimes that's all you need, you know? And then boom, the new one starts. Well, then you got more time to put the new programming in. And just focusing only on the new program will, you know, sometimes certain programming you put in you will push out the other programming. But I always come back to, if you don't fill the hole, if you just put something in, you know what I mean? Anyways, nature looks to fill the hole. So basically, you have to take something out and you fill that hole with it yourself. Because if you're just adding something onto there that's never been there before, well then there's no hole. First of all, it may not stay. You may not be able to put it in right. And anyways, if you just put it in there and then it's in there for a while, but then for some reason you can't sustain it, well then what was there before will go back in there. Anyways, before I get too much more incoherent, I think that's enough. So I guess the point I'm trying to say is, if you don't use planets or deities, well, maybe start with the moon or just pick a deity. Understand that your sigils, your candle magic, whatever magic you're doing right now, using astrology, whatever it is, you're using what was put inside you. And you learned it from people that probably believed in certain spirits as well. And, you know, they got it from somewhere down the line who believed in all sorts of probably gods and goddesses. You know, point is, it's nice to have something to show respect to. Because if you always have to, because like, you buy a candle, right? And you do a sigil on the candle. Okay. And say, I'm doing this candle to myself. Because myself is who I want to manifest. So that's kind of fucked up, right? That is basically what you're doing. The deity you're giving that candle to is the deity that you've kind of is vicariously living through your subconscious mind to you, right? That's where you're communicating through almost. So basically it's going to your subconscious mind, which is perfect because when you're sleeping, subconscious mind's awake, and I always go to sleep with that candle lit. So, you know, even with the tape recorder on, me listening to this stuff, I have that candle lit with the watchers around it, watching it, the fire element and the air element going. And my subconscious mind is awake whenever I'm sleeping. So it sees the candle I lit. So it sees the message I put on there. You know, it's kind of why sleeping under a book also helps, because it sees what's there. You're like leaving in a message. It's like, you know, if you couldn't see somebody, if you were working nights or working days before cell phones, well, how would you communicate? Well, you would slip them a note if you were like sleeping in the same household to speak to each other. You know what I mean? Well, it's kind of what you're doing with your subconscious mind. You're slipping it little fucking notes, little fucking ideas. So I slip mine the candle that's lit. You know, I do it right before I go to sleep, and then, you know, I put on the recorder that tells it exactly what I want it to happen, basically. And then, you know, anyways. So, I think I give enough information there to help with manifestations and different things like that. This should have been something on magic on a budget, to be completely honest, but I'm going to put it on ceremonial witchcraft anyways, just because that's where I get the most views and money, ha 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 ha, money, baby. No, but seriously, I'm just gonna put it on there because more people see it there. I might play some Joe Dispenza after this. I'll probably get another copyright claim like I did for the Bruce Lipton shit, but the copyright claims I get just say that, and I never dispute them, that because I don't make money off of YouTube. That's just another platform where people can't find the stuff off of Spreaker. But anyways, so my YouTube one is just for that, but it says this stuff that you put on here, this is paraphrasing, but the content you use on here belongs to such and such company, and they are claiming that is their property. Therefore, any monetization that you make will have to go to them. And I always say, no problem, they fucking deserve it. These motherfuckers helped me. I'm not putting it on there to get hits. I'm putting it on there to cite my work. I put it on there to cite where I got my information so that people don't think I'm the brains behind it. I'm using my subconscious, the spirits that I use my ability to meditate, get information, and my cross communication, plus those guys' information, and then I research, and anybody that I hear something like from Bruce Lipton or Joe Dispenza, and if I'm not sure if it's accurate or not, or even if I believe it's accurate or not, I always double, triple check it in various different ways. And if they pass the test, then they get put on the show because I'm going to use their information to try to teach others. And by all means, if they get monetization because of my fucking video, then great. I consider it my contribution back to these people, these gurus, these men that have helped me. So, as long as nothing bad happens, I'm okay with still doing that because I'm not showing their faces. I don't show the whole thing. And then, like I said, I'm not claiming it as my own. I'm never going to claim it as my own. I know I get a lot of those copyright infringements, but, it's just, to me, it's just a way to, give back. If somebody can fucking monetize my shit and then those guys get the money, well, then by all means, I wish I could do that and have that happen because they deserve it. They're helping lots of people. Man, the stuff that Bruce Lipton is saying right now, and even Joe, but mostly Bruce, like, everybody should be listening to when it comes to this virus because the shit he's saying is so bloody smart and important and sound and legit because I looked it up. It's like, man, everybody worrying is shutting up their immune system. So if there is coronavirus, you're more at risk, dum-dum. So, why does everybody not know that or being told that? Or why isn't that on the news every single night as the last thing they say? Okay, here's the deaths. Here's what happened. So watch out. Do all this. But remember, don't shut down your immune system because you're going to be a fucking easy pickings, fuck. But anyways, I'm going to end on that. I hope you enjoyed. A little shorter than usual, but, it is what it is. Have yourselves a great fucking night.
That your body now knows how to do it better than your mind. Well, a habit is a redundant set of...
Alright, so just before I play the rest of this, make sure you guys check the description. I put a couple books in there. 2 from Joe, 1 from Bruce. What's the book? Beyond Belief. Anyways, something of the belief. I can't remember it. Anyways, but it's the one of Bruce Lipton's books, and 2 from Joe, Placebo and Becoming Supernatural. So yeah, make sure you download those PDFs, and I hope you enjoyed the show, and yeah, have a great fucking day.
Automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that's acquired through repetition. A habit is when you've done something so many times that your body now knows how to do it better than your mind. So if you think about it, people wake up in the morning, they begin to think about their problems. Those problems are circuits of memories in the brain. Each one of those memories are connected to people and things at certain times and places. And if the brain is a record of the past, the moment they start their day, they're already thinking in the past. Each one of those memories has an emotion. Emotions are the end product of past experiences. So the moment they recall those memories of their problems, they all of a sudden feel unhappy, they feel sad, they feel pain. Now, how you think and how you feel creates your state of being. So the person's entire state of being when they start their day is in the past. So what does that mean? The familiar past will sooner or later be predictable future. So if you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, and you can't think greater than how you feel, or feelings have become the means of thinking, by very definition of emotions, you're thinking in the past. And for the most part, you're going to keep creating the same life. So then people grab their cell phone, they check their WhatsApp, they check their text, they check their emails, they check Facebook, they take a picture of their feet, they post it on Facebook, they tweet something, they do Instagram, they check the news, and now they feel really connected to everything that's known in their life. And then they go through a series of routine behaviors. They get out of bed on the same side, they go to the toilet, they get a cup of coffee, they take a shower, they get dressed, they drive to work the same way, they do the same things, they see the same people, they push the same emotional buttons, and that becomes the routine, and it becomes like a program. So now they've lost their free will to a program, and there's no unseen hand doing it to them. So when it comes time to change, the redundancy of that cycle becomes a subconscious program. So now 95% of who we are by the time we're 35 years old is a memorized set of behaviors, emotional reactions, unconscious habits, hardwired attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions that function like a computer program. So then a person can say with their 5% of their conscious mind, I want to be healthy, I want to be happy, I want to be free. But the body's on a whole different program. So then how do you begin to make those changes? Well, you have to get beyond the analytical mind, because what separates the conscious mind from the subconscious mind is the analytical mind. And that's where meditation comes in, because you can teach people through practice how to change their brainwaves, slow them down. And when they do that properly, they do enter the operating system where they can begin to make some really important changes. So most people then wait for crisis or trauma or disease or diagnosis. They wait for loss, some tragedy to make up their mind to change. And my message is, why wait? And you can learn and change in a state of pain and suffering, or you can learn and change in a state of joy and inspiration. I think right now, the cool thing is that people are waking up.
That's really interesting. And where I found the deepest hooks into how powerful this can be for somebody is when you talk about trauma. You talked about how people experience a traumatic event, but they then basically rehearse it, and how that then has this knock-on effect. So what is that? Why do people find it so hard to get past trauma?
The stronger the emotional reaction you have to some experience in your life, the higher the emotional quotient, the more you pay attention to the cause. The moment the brain puts all of its attention on the cause, it takes a snapshot, and that's called a memory. So long-term memories are created from very highly emotional experiences. So what happens then is that people think neurologically within the circuitry of that experience, and they feel chemically within the boundaries of those emotions. And so when you have an emotional reaction to someone or something, most people think that they can't control their emotional reaction. Well, it turns out if you allow that emotional reaction, it's called a refractory period, to last for hours or days, that's called the mood. I say to someone, hey, what's up? And say, I'm in a mood. Well, why are you in a mood? Well, I had this thing happen to me 5 days ago, and I'm having one long emotional reaction. If you keep that same emotional reaction going on for weeks or months, that's called temperament. Why is he so bitter? I don't know. Let's ask him. Why is he so bitter? Why are you bitter? Well, I had this thing happen to me 9 months ago. And if you keep that same emotional reaction going on for years on end, that's called a personality trait. And so learning how to shorten the refractory period of emotional reactions is really where the work starts. So then people, when they have an event, what they do is they keep recalling the event, because the emotions of stress hormones, the survival emotions, are saying, pay attention to what happened, because you want to be prepared if it happens again. Turns out most people spend 70% of their life living in survival and living in stress. So they're always anticipating the worst case scenario based on a past experience, and they're literally out of the infinite potentials in the quantum field, they're selecting the worst possible outcome, and they're beginning to emotionally embrace it with fear. And they're conditioning their body into a state of fear. Do that enough times, the body has a panic attack without you. You can't even predict it because it's programmed subconsciously. So then you say to the person, why are you this way? And they'll say, I am this way because of this event that happened to me 15 or 20 years ago. And what that means from a biological standpoint is that they haven't been able to change since that event. So then the emotions from the experience tend to give the body and the brain a rush of energy. So people become addicted to the rush of those emotions, and they use the problems and conditions in their life to reaffirm their limitation, so at least they can feel something. So now when it comes time to change, you say to the person, why are you this way? Well, every time they recall the event, they're producing the same chemistry in their brain and body as if the event is occurring, firing and wiring the same circuits and sending the same emotional signature to the body. Well, what's the relevance behind that? Well, your body is the unconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference between the experience that's creating the emotion and the emotion that you're creating by thought alone. So the body's believing it's living in the same past experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And so then when those emotions influence certain thoughts, and they do, and then those thoughts create the same emotions, and those same emotions influence the same thoughts, now the entire person's state of being is in the past. So then the hardest part about change is not making the same choices you did the day before, period. And the moment you decide to make a different choice, get ready, because it's going to feel uncomfortable. The bigger thing is that we keep firing and wiring those circuits. They become more hardwired. So you have a thought, and then the program runs. But it's the emotion that follows the thought. If you have a fearful thought, you're going to feel anxiety. The moment you feel anxiety, your brain's checking in with your body and saying, yeah, you're pretty anxious. So then you start thinking more corresponding thoughts equal to how you feel. Well, the redundancy of that cycle conditions the body to become the mind. So now, when it comes time to change, the person steps into that river of change and they make a different choice, and all of a sudden, they don't feel the same way. So the body says, well, you've been doing this for 35 years. You're going to just stop suffering and stop feeling guilty and stop feeling shameful, and you're not going to complain or blame or make excuses or feel sorry for yourself. Well, the body's in the unknown. So the body says, I want to return back to familiar territory. So the body starts influencing the mind, and it says, start tomorrow. You're too much like your mother. You'll never change. This isn't going to work for you. This doesn't feel right. And so if you respond to that thought as if it's true, that same thought will lead to the same choice, which will lead to the same behavior, which will create the same experience, which will produce the same emotion.
I want to talk about that notion of, give me a little more detail on what you mean by the body becomes the mind, or the unconscious mind. What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, those are two different things. Your body is your unconscious mind. In a sense, if you're sitting down and you start thinking about some future worst-case scenario that you're conjuring up in your mind, and you begin to feel the emotion of that event, your body doesn't know the difference between the event that's taking place in your world, outer world, and what you're creating by emotion or thought alone. So most people then, they're constantly reaffirming their emotional states. So when it comes time to give up that emotion, they can say, I really want to do it. But really the body is stronger than the mind because it's been conditioned that way. So the servant now has become the master. And the person, all of a sudden, once they step into that unknown, they'd rather feel guilt and suffering because at least they can predict it. Being in the unknown is a scary place for most people because the unknown is uncertain. And when people say to me, well, I can't predict my future. I'm in the unknown, and I always say the best way to predict your future is to create it. Not from the known, but from the unknown. What thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? What behaviors do you want to demonstrate in one day? The act of rehearsing them mentally, closing your eyes, and rehearsing the action.
They're rehearsing the reaction of what you want?
The action of what you want. By closing your eyes and mentally rehearsing some action, If you're truly present, the brain does not know the difference between what you're imaging and what you're experiencing in 3D world. So then you begin to install the neurological hardware in your brain to look like the event has already occurred. Now, the brain is no longer a record of the past. Now it's a map to the future. And if you keep doing it, priming it that way, the hardware becomes a software program. And who knows, you just may start acting like a happy person. And then I think the hardest part is to teach our body emotionally what the future will feel like ahead of the actual experience. So what does that mean? You can't wait for your success to feel empowered. You can't wait for your wealth to feel abundant. You can't wait for your new relationship to feel love, or your healing to feel whole. I mean, that's the old model of reality, of cause and effect, waiting for something outside of us to change how we feel inside of us. And when we feel better inside of us, we pay attention to whoever or whatever caused it. But what that means then is that from the Newtonian world is that most people spend their whole life living in lack, waiting for something to change out there.
What do you mean the Newtonian world?
The Newtonian world is all about the predictable. It's all about predicting the future. But the quantum model of reality is about causing an effect. The moment you start feeling abundant and worthy, you are generating wealth. The moment you're empowered and feel it, you're beginning to step towards your success. The moment you start feeling whole, your healing begins. And when you love yourself and you love all of life, you'll create an equal. Now you're causing an effect. And I think that's the difference between living as a victim in your world, saying, I am this way because of this person or that thing or this experience. They made me think and feel this way. When you switch that around, you become a creator of your world. And you start saying, my thinking and my feeling is changing an outcome in my life. And now that's a whole different game. And we start believing more that we're creators of reality.
So how do we go from, okay, I have this negative emotion, it's controlling my life, it's got me in this cycle of, I think about this emotion, which triggers a chemical reaction, which trains my body to feel that way, which makes it easier and more likely I will do it again. And so now I'm in this vicious cycle.
And unconscious, and it's unconscious.
Right. And you said, does your thinking create your environment, or does your environment create your thinking, which I thought was really, really interesting. So how do we then go from that, like mechanistically, to begin this visualization process of something that's empowering? It's me in a different state. It's my future self. Is it meditation? Is it, what does that look like?
If you're not being defined by a vision of the future, then you're left with the old memories of the past, and you will be predictable in your life. And if you wake up in the morning and you're not being defined by a vision of the future, as you see the same people and you go to the same places and you do the exact same thing at the exact same time, it's no longer that your personality is creating your personal reality. Now your personal reality is affecting or creating your personality. Your environment is really controlling how you think and feel unconsciously. Because every person, everything, every place, every experience has a neurological network in your brain. Every experience that you have with every person produces an emotion. So some people will use their boss to reaffirm their addiction to judgment. They'll use their enemy to reaffirm their addiction to hatred. They'll use their friends to reaffirm their addiction to suffering. So now they need the outer world to feel something. So to change then is to be greater than your environment, to be greater than the conditions in your world. And the environment is that seductive. So then why is meditation the tool? Well, let's sit down, let's close our eyes. Let's disconnect from your outer environment. So if you're seeing less things, there's less stimulation going to your brain. If you're playing soft music or you have earplugs in, less sensory information coming to your brain. So you're disconnecting from your environment. If you can sit your body down and tell it to stay like an animal, stay right here. I'm going to feed you when we're done. You can get up and check your emails. You can do all your texts. But right now, you're going to sit there and obey me. So then, when you do that properly, and you're not eating anything or smelling anything or tasting anything, you're not up experiencing and feeling anything, you would have to agree with me that you're being defined by a thought, right? So when the body wants to go back to its emotional past, and you become aware that your attention is on that emotion, and where you place your attention is where you place your energy, you're siphoning your energy out of the present moment into the past. And you become aware of that. And you settle your body back down in the present moment, because it's saying, well, it's 8 o'clock. You normally get upset because you're in traffic around this time. And here you are sitting, and We're used to feeling anger and you're off schedule. Oh, it's 11 o'clock and you usually check your emails and judge everybody. Well, the body's looking for that predictable chemical state. Every time you become aware that you're doing that and your body is craving those emotions and you settle it back down into the present moment, you're telling the body it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind. And now your will is getting greater than the program. And if you keep doing this over and over again, over and over again, over and over again, just like training a stallion or a dog, it's just going to say, I'm going to sit. And the moment that happens, and the body's no longer the mind, when it finally surrenders, there's a liberation of energy. We go from particle to wave, from matter to energy, and we free ourselves from the chains of those emotions that keep us in the familiar past. And we've seen this thousands of times. In fact, we can actually predict it now on a brain scan.
I like to give people a challenge. I'm curious, I want everyone listening.
And one lady in her late 70s. Hi. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you. I think I'm in the right place. My dear friend Dawson Church is a jewel, isn't he? I want you to turn to the person next to you. I want you to look them in the eye. And I want you to introduce yourself as a genius. Let's begin. So, this one-day workshop is about you. It's an opportunity for you to retreat from your life for just one day and to remove the constant stimulation in your external environment that reminds you of who you think you are as a personality. To separate yourself from the people you know, and the places you go, and the things that you do at the exact same time every single day, long enough for us to remind you of what you already know. That you are actually the creator of your life. And we are going to develop concepts and ideas in one day. And every time you learn something new, you make new connections in your brain. That's what learning is. Learning is forging new synaptic connections. And as you begin to leave imprints in your neurological tissue as a result of your interaction in the environment, the next thing is that you're going to have an opportunity then to apply that information, to personalize it, to demonstrate it. And a certain group of people will get their behaviors to match their intentions, to get their actions equal to their thoughts. They'll step out into the unknown and they'll try it. And when they do, they'll have a new experience. An experience then enriches the brain, reorganizing more circuits than what you understood physiologically. But the moment those neurons string into place, the brain makes a chemical, and that chemical is called a feeling or an emotion. And the moment you feel unlimited, the moment you feel like a patient parent, the moment you feel abundant, the moment you feel free, now you are teaching your body chemically to understand what your mind has intellectually understood. So we can say knowledge is for the mind and experience is for the body. And in that moment, you're beginning to embody the truth of that philosophy, of that theory. And you're literally signaling new genes in new ways. And you are rewriting your biological program. But if you've done it once, it must mean you can do it again. And if you can repeat any experience over and over again, you are going to neurochemically condition your mind and body to begin to work as one. And when you've done something so many times that the body now knows how to do it as well as the mind, now it's becoming innate in you. It's second nature. It's easy. It's familiar. It's who you are. As a matter of fact, you've practiced it so many times that you don't even have to consciously think about it because it's becoming a subconscious program. So our job is to go from philosopher to initiate to master, from knowledge to experience to wisdom, from mind to body to soul, from thinking to doing to being, to learning it with your head, practicing it with your hands, and knowing it by heart. And you and I have all the biological and neurological machinery to do this. And this is a time in history where it's not enough to know. This is a time in history to know how. And I can tell you from my last 5 years of traveling around the world, the common people that look just like you are doing the uncommon. They're healing themselves of very serious health conditions. They're creating better opportunities and better lives for themselves, new careers. They're healing old scars and wounds that kept them connected to the past. And they're having mystical experiences that transcend language, that take them years to be able to understand and explain. And they look just like you. Now, most people in their life wait for that crisis or the trauma, the disease, or the diagnosis, some kind of loss, betrayal in their life before they make up their mind to change. And my message has always been, why wait? Why wait for that tragedy before you decide to change who you are? And when you begin to apply these principles because you understand that they work, then it means then you'll believe in a future more than you believe in your past. And people who do the work are more in love with their future than they are with their past. And they're more interested in telling the story of possibility in their future than reliving the emotions and experiences of the past. And you know, the beauty behind all of this is that you don't have to be a monk. You don't have to be a priest. You don't have to be a rabbi. You don't have to have 40 years of meditation. You don't have to be a scholar or an academic. As a matter of fact, it's better if you're not. Because the simplicity of all of this, when people begin to apply it, is they begin to experience the fruits of their efforts. And I can tell you there isn't a person in this room that is so special to be excluded from this phenomenon. And that your thoughts literally have an effect on your body. That all thoughts carry an energy or a frequency. And if you believe that on some level that your thoughts have something to do with your body or your life, and you're thinking 60 to 70,000 thoughts in one day, and 90% of those thoughts are the same redundant thoughts as the day before, it's going to produce the same measurable effects in your body, yes or no? And you are going to begin to emit the same energy and information in your field. And you are going to keep creating the same life. So then the same thoughts always lead to the same choices. The same choices always lead to the same behaviors. The same behaviors create the same experiences. And the same experiences produce the same feelings and the same emotions. And those very same emotions drive your very same thoughts. And your biology, your neurocircuitry, your neurochemistry, your hormones, and even your genetic expression is equal to how you think, how you act, and how you feel. And how you think, how you act, and how you feel is called your personality. And your personality creates your personal reality. That's it. That's it. So if you wanted to create a new personal reality, a new life, you would have to change your personality, yes or no? That means then you would have to start thinking about what you've been thinking about and change it, yes? You would have to become aware of your unconscious habits and behaviors and modify them, true? even what you say and how you talk. And you would have to look at those emotions that keep you connected to your past, because emotions are the end product of past experiences. And you would have to decide, do these emotions belong in my future? That means if you want to be wealthy, you can't take lack or unworthiness. Wealthy person would never feel that way. So most people try to create a new personal reality as the same personality, and it doesn't work. You're literally going to have to become someone else. So the principle in neuroscience says that nerve cells that fire together. So if you keep thinking the same thoughts, making the same choices, demonstrating the same behaviors, create the same experiences that stamp the same networks of neurons into the same patterns, all for the familiar feeling called you, then wouldn't you agree then, if you've done that over and over again, firing and wiring, emotionally conditioning and signaling the body in the same way into the past? If you did that, I don't know, let's be conservative, 25 years, would you agree then you would begin to hardwire your brain into a very finite signature? Yes? And that finite signature is called your identity. And it's a fact that by the time we're 35 years old, we become memorized to a set of automatic programs, behaviors, beliefs, perceptions, emotional reactions that function subconsciously. So then the first process of change then would become conscious of your unconscious thoughts, yes or no? And because of the size of the frontal lobe, which is 40% of your entire brain, the crowning achievement of the human being, the fact that you can observe how you're thinking, notice how you're acting, and pay attention to how you're feeling, the moment you can observe that, it means you're no longer the program, yes or no? You're the consciousness observing the program, and you're beginning to objectify your subjective self. You're no longer your biology. You're the consciousness observing who you are, yes or no? Yes. So then the word meditation then literally means to become familiar with. That's what it means. That's the symbol. So then if you begin to become familiar with how you've been thinking, and you're so conscious of those unconscious thoughts like, I can't, what's wrong with me, it's too hard, I'll never change, I'll never make it, I'm too tired, nobody loves me. Those are the thoughts that are slipping by your analytical mind unchecked and beginning to program your autonomic nervous system into the same destiny. The moment you become aware of what comes out of your mouth and how you act, whether you blame or complain or make excuses for yourself or judge other people, the moment you become aware of that, if you're so familiar with that program, would you agree the more conscious you are of that unconscious habit, the less likely you're to go unconscious, yes or no? And it would take an act of will to stay present and aware, yes or no? And if you're becoming so familiar with the emotions that you've been living by every day for the last 20 years, that you didn't even know that you were guilty because it just felt like you. And it was so comfortable suffering that you felt really good to feel bad. But you didn't know that because that's just how you've been feeling. Yes or no? And then all of a sudden you become conscious. Oh my God, what have I been doing? The moment you become aware of that, then, it means then you're less likely to lower your energy and your emotional state during your day because you would become conscious of it. Yes or no? And what if, then, you decided, what thoughts do I want to put my attention behind? Let me review them, how a great person would think. What would be the internal dialogue they would have? And you began to fire and wire those circuits in your brain. And if you did that a few times, you would begin to install some circuits in your brain, yes or no? And if you kept thinking that way, firing and wiring, the hardware would become a software program, yes or no? And who knows? In your waking day, you may start thinking like a great person. Because the circuits are there, yes or no? And if you said I'm going to master this day. One day, one lifetime. How would an unlimited person live today? And you began to rehearse in your mind who you were going to be before you opened your eyes. The act of rehearsing mentally, when you're truly present, your brain does not know the difference between what's going on out there and what's going on in here. And all of a sudden, you begin to install more circuits in your brain, priming it. All of a sudden, installing those circuits so that you have the hardware in place to act like that person, yes or no? Come on. And if you've done that enough times, would you all of a sudden start acting like that person? In your waking day, because you've primed your brain instead of to be a record of the past, that now it's becoming a map to the future. Yes or no? And then what if you said, now this is, to me, greatness. Can I teach my body emotionally what my future is going to feel like before it's made manifest? Now, this is the challenge, because we've studied this so much. Most people wait for their wealth to feel abundant and worthy. They wait for their success to feel empowerment. They wait for the healing to feel gratitude and wholeness. They wait for their new relationship to feel love. Or they wait for the mystical moment to occur to feel awe. That means then we're victims to our environment. We're waiting for something outside of us to change how we feel inside of us. And the moment we feel better inside of us, we pay attention to whoever or whatever caused it. And that event, in and of itself, is called a memory. That's Newtonian physics, cause and effect. In other words, if people are in lack, or they're empty, or they're suffering, they're waiting for some external exogenous condition to change how they feel. And what happens if it doesn't happen? They spend the rest of their life fighting for it, trying to controlling it, manipulating it, trying to make it happen because they're separate from possibility. But don't you know that the moment you start feeling wholeness, your healing begins? The moment you start feeling worthy and abundant, you're walking towards a future called wealth. The moment you're empowered by a vision in every single day, you're living in that energy, you are going to tune into a new future. And synchronicities and serendipities are going to begin to happen all around you. The moment you're in love with yourself and you're in love with life, you're going to magnetize an equal. The moment you're in awe of knowledge and information, you're going to have a mystical experience. And that's causing an effect. And so then, if science tells us that the environment signals the gene, are you with me? And all genes make proteins. And proteins are responsible for the structure and the function of your body. And genes are like Christmas tree lights. They turn on and off all the time, and we've measured this. Would you agree then that if an experience in your environment produces an emotion, and science tells us it's the environment that signals the gene, when you begin to experience the emotion ahead of the environmental experience, you're signaling the gene to begin to make new proteins to prepare the body for that future experience. Are you with me? Yeah. Now you're in alignment biologically with the destiny, neurologically, chemically, hormonally. And all of a sudden now, this is the beauty. If you're able to then maintain that state of mind and body, where there's physical evidence in your brain and body to look like the experience has already occurred because you're doing the work, then the magic starts to happen in your life, and it comes out of nowhere. Those coincidences, those opportunities that begin to unfold are unfolding because you're no longer living in the known. You're living in the unknown. Are you with me still? And I'm telling you, you're more alive and at your best when you're in the unknown than when you're in the known. Are you still with me? So then, if the brain is a record of the past, it's an artifact of everything you've learned and experienced to this moment. Would you agree then, if you're not being defined by a vision of the future every single day, you're left with the old circuits of the past? Yes or no? And if you are living by the memories of the past and you're not installing any circuits into the future, then you're going to be predictable in your life. Yes or no? Come on. And if feelings and emotions are the end product of past experiences, and you remember experiences better because you remember how they feel, the moment you wake up in the morning and you say, let me see, let me think about my problems. Oh, now I'm starting to feel a little bit more like myself. Wait, let me grab my cell phone and let me check my WhatsApp and my texts and my emails and my Facebook. And Jennifer's eating carbohydrates. Did you see that? Oh my God. And my high school boyfriend is looking for me. And the moment you begin to connect to your network of your personal reality, the moment you start turning on those circuits in your brain and you come back to your senses and you get connected to those emotions that have defined you based on memories, and those emotions are driving your thoughts, and you can't think greater than how you feel, you're thinking in the past. Yes or no? And you'll keep creating more of the same life. So then, think about this. You wake up in the morning, your brain, for the most part, is in the past. Yes or no? Come on, poke the person next to you over there. And would you agree then, if you connect to a familiar feeling or an emotion, and those emotions are driving your thoughts, and those thoughts are creating the same emotions, and those same emotions are driving your same thoughts, and those same thoughts are creating the same emotions, that you're conditioning your body into the past? Yes or no? And your body is the unconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference between an experience in your life that's creating an emotion and an emotion that you're creating by thought alone. So the body, it's believing and it's living in the same past experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Yes or no? And the body is beginning to continuously get the same information, and it's believing it's in the same environmental condition, which means you're signaling the same gene in the same way. Yes or no? And now you're headed for a genetic destiny. Yes or no? And you've done nothing wrong. You're just taking too long. Because those emotions then will define you. And then someone will say to you, what's up? Why are you so angry? Why are you so bitter? Why are you so afraid? Why are you so in so much pain? Why are you suffering so bad? And you say, I'm so glad you asked. And then you tell a narrative, the story of your past, firing and wiring the same circuits in your brain, working yourself up into an emotional froth to keep signaling the body into the past, reaffirming your personality based on a feeling. And the latest research on memory says that 50% of what you're talking about isn't even the truth. That you make stuff up. You embellish it. That memory is creative. And what that really means after all these years of studying this, when you ask a person that, it means that they had an event or a series of events in their life that branded them emotionally. And when they tell that narrative, what they're really saying is, I haven't been able to change since that event. I've been altered from that experience. Yes or no? Yes. And they find people in their life that are the same emotion, the same energy, and they use each other to reaffirm their addiction to that emotion, and they get agreement for it. And they say, I can suffer more than you can. No, I can suffer more than you do. Are you with me still? Yes. So then, the body becomes conditioned into the past, which means for the most part, most people's biologies are anchored in the past. And if how you think and how you feel creates your state of being. And you're thinking the same thoughts that are creating the same feelings and same emotions, and those emotions are influencing your thoughts. Would you agree then? You're signaling that same gene over and over again, and if genes are responsible for the structure and the function of the body, and you keep selecting and instructing the same gene, you're going to wear that gene out. Yes or no? Yes. Just like gears in your car. Taking a fax of a fax of a fax of a fax, or a copy of a copy of a copy, sooner or later, it's going to lose its detail, yes or no? And that's exactly what happens to the body. The body begins to break down because those proteins are responsible for your physiology, for your structure. So then if immune cells make immune proteins, and you're living in fear every single day, you're living in anger and resentment and impatience every single day, then you're signaling the same gene in the same way, yes or no? And if you keep doing that for a period of time, sooner or later you're going to program that gene, and all of a sudden the body's going to get unhealthy. Yes or no? And look, people say, well, I did my meditation 3 days and nothing happened. But I tell them, how long did it take you to create that condition? Tell me. So then if meditation means to become familiar with, you got to become more familiar with the thoughts, behaviors, and emotions of your future than familiar with the thoughts and behaviors, emotions of your past. Yes or no? Yes. So then if you keep firing and wiring the same circuits in your brain, installing the circuits, the hardware becomes a software program, and it gets easier to think in unlimited ways. It gets easier to act like a wealthy person. It becomes easier then to cultivate the emotions of your future instead of the emotions of your past. And our students, people in this work, some of them have had horrific pasts. They've been abused, they've been traumatized, they have had very difficult conditions, and they stopped telling the story of their past. They started telling the story of their future, and they started believing more in that in their past. When people come up to me and they vomit all over me about their past, I don't have a problem with that. I know that it's natural to do that. But I always ask them, listen to me, if you can't overcome that past in some way and you're feeling those emotions, you'll only talk about your past when you're feeling those emotions, because those emotions bring you back to your past, yes or no? Yes. Come on. Yes. But if you're having a great life, you never talk about your past anymore because you're no longer emotionally bound to it, yes or no? Yes. So then the moment you start feeling emotional, hint, you're back in your past, yes or no? So now reason this with me. Great experiments have been done on the fact that we emit light and information, that you are an electromagnetic being, that you are emitting energy and information. And all that energy is carrying a message. And if you're living every single day in the same energy, then your life should not change in any way. Yes or no? Come on. Come on, stay with me. Did the gene thing throw you off? So think about this. When you are living in fear, when you're living in anger, when you're living in resentment, you're living in survival because those emotions signal the stress response, yes or no? Yes. And when you turn on that stress response, you are going to draw from this invisible field of vital energy around your body, that light and that information, and you're going to turn it into chemistry. And you're going to diminish your very field around your body, yes or no? Yes. So then, when you perceive a threat, when you see a circumstance in your environment that is unpredictable or unknown, the moment you perceive that, you activate that fight or flight nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, and you're going to mobilize enormous amounts of energy to prepare yourself for that danger in your outer world. Yes or no? And you can do that on the short term because that's survival. But when the event is over, the body rests, parasympathetic nervous system turns back on, long-term building projects start to occur, you're starting to heal. And all organisms can tolerate short-term stress. But what if it's not a predator? What if it's your coworker? What if it's your boss? What if it's your sister-in-law? Because of some past experience, you're perceiving that condition in your environment based on your past, and you're turning on the same stress response as if you were being chased by a predator. Yes or no? And you keep going back into that environmental condition, and you knee-jerk in the same way, and you keep producing those same chemicals over and over again, same chemicals over and over again. Stress chemicals down-regulate genes to create disease. It's a fact. Are you with me still? So then, if you're doing that for an extended period of time, and all of a sudden now, you become addicted to the very rush of chemistry, it gives the brain and body a rush of energy. Would you agree then, if you keep doing that over and over again like an addict, you need to feel angry. You need to feel lack. You need to feel unworthy because it reaffirms the emotional state. Are you still with me? Now, it gets a little bit weird here because we got a big frontal lobe. And you can just call up a memory from the past. And the moment you call up the memory from the past, your body's in the past physiologically and emotionally. And you can begin to worry about the worst thing that could happen in your life. Out of the infinite potentials in the quantum field, you're going to select the worst case scenario. And you're going to begin to get ready for that event. And you are going to begin to change your emotional state in preparation for the worst thing that could happen. Because in survival, if you prepare for the worst, you have better chances of surviving. Are you with me still? Now, I would call that a limited imagination. Yes or no? But in survival, though, when you're in stress, then, if you prepare for the worst and it doesn't happen and something less happens, you have a better chance of living. And this is the primitive survival gene that begins to become activated. And people spend their entire life doing this. And all they're doing is marrying a clear intention, a vision of their future, which is a very limited point of view, and embracing it with a familiar emotion of the past. And they're expecting their past to be their future. And if how you think and how you feel creates your state of being, that person's past is going to be their future. Are you with me still? So then, reason this with me. If you can turn on the stress response just by thought alone, and the hormones of stress give the brain and body a rush of energy, and people become conditioned or addicted like junkies to those emotions, then would you agree with me then? If you can turn on that stress response just by thought alone, that you can become addicted to your own thoughts. Yes or no? And if the hormones of stress are highly addictive and you're using your boss or your coworker or your sister-in-law or your finances to reaffirm your addiction to that emotion, is it possible you become addicted to the life you don't even like? Yes or no? And this is why change is so hard. And if you can turn on the stress response just by thought alone, and the hormones of stress downregulate genes to create disease, then your thoughts could make you sick. Yes or no? So, okay, let's go out on a limb here. If your thoughts could make you sick, is it possible that your thoughts could make you well?
Again.
Okay. So, okay, let's go out on a limb here. If your thoughts could make you sick, is it possible that your thoughts could make you well?
Absolutely.
Okay. So then that means then that you would have to start a process of no longer drawing from this invisible field of vital energy and turning it into chemistry and diminishing your own light field. When you do that over time in chronic stress, and you keep drawing from this invisible field of energy and turning it into chemistry, you have no light field. Yes or no?
Yes.
Come on.
Yes.
So now you're more matter and less energy, more particle and less wave. And in fact, the hormones of stress cause you to narrow your focus on objects and things and people because that's where the danger is. And when the hormones of stress kick in and your brain waves go into high beta and you're aroused, you're going to pay attention to your outer world and you're no longer going to want to believe in your inner world of possibility. Are you with me still? And if the survival gene is switched on, then you won't want to go in, close your eyes and create because it's not a time to create.
It's not a time to focus on the unknown. It's a time to prepare yourself for what could be lurking behind those corners. And it's not a time to learn. It's not a time to open your heart. It's not a time to be vulnerable. It's not a time to sit still. It's a time to run, to fight, or to hide. And people spend the majority of their life living by these hormones. And those hormones cause us to become materialists, using our senses to define reality. And if you can't see it, you can't hear it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't feel it, it doesn't exist. And all of a sudden, people give up possibility. And now, when they're more matter than energy, they will try to force outcomes, control outcomes, predict outcomes, fight for outcomes, because they are matter trying to change matter. Are you with me still? And as people begin to try to control and predict all the different things in their life when they're aroused by these chemicals, each person, each object, each thing, each place, each experience has a neurological network in their brain because they've experienced them already. Yes or no? And as they shift their attention from one person to one problem to one thing, they start activating these different circuits over and over again. And all of a sudden, if you measure that in the brain gets highly incoherent. It's a house divided against itself. And when your brain is incoherent, you're incoherent. And when your brain isn't working right, you're not working right. And at the exact same time, when this vital energy is being drawn and turned into chemistry, the heart, the center of oneness, the center of wholeness, your first step to divinity right here, the bridge, your connection to the unified field, it loses its energy. And all of a sudden, it starts to beat very incoherently. The emotions of resentment and impatience and hatred and violence cause the heart all of a sudden to no longer be in balance. And all of a sudden, we no longer trust our heart. What we want to do is protect ourselves from everyone and everything in our life, and we no longer trust. And if you can't trust in the unknown, then it doesn't exist. And people understand when they're living by the hormones of stress unconsciously to run from the unknown. Because the unknown you can't predict, and it's being in that state of the unknown, not being able to predict your future, that actually creates the stress response. So nobody takes a chance in possibility. And everybody's waiting for everybody to do it. Are you with me still? When you narrow your focus on matter and on objects and things and people, you're focusing on the particle in quantum physics, and you're eliminating the wave of possibility. And where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And if all of your attention is on matter, then energy doesn't exist from you, and you will feel separate from the field. You will live in lack, and you will say, I feel empty, and I need that thing to make me feel better. And once I get that thing, I'm going to experience the emotion of it, and when I get it, then it's going to make me feel better. But when the novelty wears off, here comes the emptiness again. So then you say, I'm in lack again. I need one of those. So then you got to go to work, and you got to drag your body through space. And when you drag your body through space, you experience time. So then you got to go back and forth to work to make the money to pay for the thing that's going to fulfill some lack. But it never does. Are you with me still? And people then, all of a sudden, after 30 years, they have their car, they have their house, they have their relationship, and they're too exhausted to enjoy it. Are you with me still? And that's called normal. But would you agree with me then? If you're waking up in the morning, come on, stay with me. If you're waking up in the morning and you're not being defined by some vision of the future, and your biology is in your past, and you get up and start your day, when you see the same people and you go to the same places, and you do the exact same thing, and you see the same object in your life, it's your environment that's influencing how you think and feel. Yes or no? And you are thinking and feeling in the past because your biology is in the past. Yes or no? Come on. So if you see the same people and you go to the same places and you do the exact same thing at the exact same time, you would have to agree with me then that your personality is no longer creating your personality. Your personal reality is creating your personality. Your environment is controlling how you think and feel. Yes or no? And as long as you're reacting equal to your environment, you should create more of the same environment. Come on. And there should be a nice biological dance, a perfect match between your neurocircuitry, your chemistry, your genes, your hormones, with what's going on in your life. There's a tango going on between your inner world and your outer world. Yes or no? So then, your environment is actually controlling you. You're a victim to the circumstances in your life. And you see the person, you unconsciously react. You go to the certain place and you think about in the past how it was. And so then, if how you think and how you feel creates your state of being, and you keep thinking the same thought that keeps producing the same emotion, that same emotion is influencing how you're thinking. You're hardwiring your brain and conditioning your body emotionally into the past, yes? And if you do that enough times, thinking and feeling in the same way, the body becomes the mind of that emotion. Now the servant has become the master, and the body's running the show. Yes or no? And so then if the body then has become the mind of that emotion, then to change then would be becoming greater than your body. Yes or no? And if your environment has that much influence on how you're thinking and feeling, then to change then is to be greater than your environment. Yes or no? And if you're waking up every single morning, coming back to your senses, looking at the person next to you saying, oh my God, who is that? How did I get here? Jeez. Wait, let me think of all my problems. Okay, I'm starting to feel like myself. Let me get my cell phone. Let me check. Okay, now I'm feeling like myself. And then you get up and you go through the same routine behaviors in your habitat. You have the vision of the toilet, and the next thing you know, you're in front of the toilet. Then while you're on the toilet, you have the vision of the coffee maker, and there you are, you're in front of the coffee maker. And then while you're drinking your coffee, you have the vision of the shower, and there you are in the shower. And while you're in the shower, you get super creative about the clothes you're going to wear, and next thing you know, you're dressed. And your body is always following your mind, but it's following it to the known. Are you with me still? And let's just say you drive to work the same way and see the same people and go to the same grocery store and buy the same food and watch the same television shows. And then you get in front of the mirror at night and you put your lotions and potions and creams on and floss the same way and brush your teeth. And you go to bed and you wake up in the morning and you're doing the same exact thing. Yes or no? Yes. Would you agree then we can take your past and lift it up and set it on your future? Yes or no? Now, that's karma. That's it. That's karma right there. And so then if you've done that enough times, a habit is a redundant set of automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that's acquired through frequent repetition. A habit is when you've done something so many times, your body now knows how to do it better than your mind. Are you with me still? So if you wake up in the morning and you're doing that, would you agree then your body's on autopilot? And it's dragging you into a predictable future based on what you did in the past. And you're unconscious. Yes or no? And I assert that when you are not in the present moment, you're running a program. So don't take anything personally from somebody, because they're just running a program as well. Are you with me still? So then, think about this. Would you agree then that if you are going to heal your body by thought alone, to create some new experience in your environment by thought alone, to create some new future that's no longer your past by thought alone, then you would have to become thought alone. Yes or no? Yes. Come on. Yes. So then would you agree then if your environment is so strong in conditioning you into the past, would you agree then maybe it'd be a good idea to sit down at the beginning of your day, close your eyes, and disconnect from your external environment? Yes or no? So then if you're seeing less things in your external environment because you've closed your eyes, all of a sudden now, your environment isn't going to control how you think and feel. Yes or no? And what if you were to play soft music in the background or put earplugs in and diminish more sensory information coming in from the environment? Would you agree you'd start putting more attention on your inner world instead of on your outer world? And what if you said to your body, hey, sit right here and stay right here. Don't you get up yet until I tell you it's time to get up. And your body is going to buck and kick like an unbridled stallion. I'm busy. I got a lot to do. I got emails to check. I got meetings to go to. Because you programmed it that way, yes or no? And every time you say to the body, stay, are you telling it it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind? Yes or no? And now the will is becoming greater than the program. Yes or no? And all of a sudden, if you became conscious that you were angry or emotional or suffering, and you became aware that that emotion was keeping you into the past and driving your brain into high beta, and you became aware of it, and then you settled your body back down into the present moment, and you kept taking it out of the past, sooner or later the animal is going to surrender. Yes or no? And when it does, you are going to liberate energy. You are going to go from particle to wave, from matter to energy. And when that happens now, all of a sudden, you start feeling a little bit more joy, and energy starts to move right there. Are you with me still? Yes. And if you are uncompromising to the eternal present moment, the generous present moment, and you keep coming back to the present moment, and you understand where you place your attention is where you place your energy, and you're no longer thinking about the people you have to see and the places you have to go and your cell phone and your computer and your emails and the news, and you keep returning your attention back to the present moment, would you agree then you're disinvesting your energy out of the known future and you're making room for the unknown in your life? Yes or no? So then, in meditation then, if you are literally going to make some type of change and affect your outer world, you're going to have to put most of your attention on your inner world, and you're going to have to become greater than the conditions in your environment and disconnect from your environment. You're going to have to sit your body down and overcome your body, and you're going to have to transcend time. Are you with me still? So then when you're living by the hormones of stress and you're in a threatening situation and the survival gene is turned on, then you're going to spend the most of your time thinking about your environment. Yes or no? And what is your environment made of? People, pets, things, objects, places, time. Yes or no? And when you're living by the hormones of stress and that survival gene is conditioned and turned on, would you agree that you better pay attention to your body if you're being chased by Mr. Big? Yes or no? So most people start to put all of their attention on their body, and they start believing that they're their body. Are you with me still? And if you're living by the hormones of stress and you're trying to predict the future based on the past, then you would have to agree with me then when you're in the present moment, you can't be in stress. Because there is no future and there is no past. There's only the present moment. Yes or no? So then meditation is about that. And what we've measured over and over again when we've done this is I now know without a doubt that you are at your absolute best when you get beyond yourself. Period. And I can tell you right now, you can't tell me you're too old. You can't tell me you're too out of shape. You can't tell me about your past. You can't tell me about your disease. I have seen transformation and shifts in people's bodies independent of how old they are, how out of shape, how in shape, their wealth, their social status. I've seen it happen on all cultures, all ages, all kinds of people. Are you with me still? So then, if you start taking your attention off your body, then would you agree that you would become nobody? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes. And if you took your attention off all the people in your life that you have to take care of and make sure everything's in place, and all those people have created your identity, that the moment you take your attention off all those people in your life, you become no one. Yes or no? Come on. And if you're not thinking about the things you own and all the objects your computer, your cell phone, then all of a sudden you're in nothing. Yes or no? And if you take your attention off the place you have to go or the place you're sitting and you get so lost in your inner world that there's no longer an outer world, then you're in nowhere. Yes or no? And if you are not thinking about the predictable future or the familiar past, and you are in the generous present moment, then you are in no time. Are you with me still? And that means then you're no longer your face. You're no longer your pain. You're no longer your job. You're no longer your gender. You're no longer your diet. You're no longer your profession. You're no longer a mother. You're no longer a father. You're no longer a kid. You're no longer your culture, your skin color. You're no longer your name. You are nobody. No one, no thing, nowhere, and no time. And in that moment, you are walking into the door to the quantum field. You are passing through the eye of the needle. Are you with me still? And now here's what happens when this occurs. And we've measured this enough times. When you're thinking about all those people and things and problems and conditions in your life and your brain is aroused because of the hormones of stress and you're in survival and you're activating all those circuits in your brain is firing very incoherently and your heart is out of rhythm and you're drawing from this field and turning it into chemistry and you're more matter and less energy, that there comes a moment where all of a sudden the person has to settle down and there's chaos going on within them. They're disconnecting from their environment, and it's the unknown. And they have to work in trusting in the unknown more than the known. And as they do this properly, and they get beyond themselves, and they're no longer thinking about those people, they're no longer thinking about their pain or their body. They're no longer putting their attention on objects or things or places and time. If they're no longer activating these circuits in the brain because they're no longer thinking about them, guess what happens? Their brain waves begin to change from beta brain waves, high beta aroused state, into alpha. And in alpha, all of a sudden, the inner world starts becoming more real than the outer world. The brain starts to imagine. And when you're out of the way, and you're no longer thinking and feeling in the same way, and you're changing your brain waves, as you change your brain waves, you're falling right into the autonomic nervous system. And as your brain waves slow down, all of a sudden you're connecting to that autonomic nervous system that wants to just do one thing, create order and balance in your body. And it says, she's gone. She's out. And it steps in right into the neocortex. And when it steps right into the executive brain, all of a sudden it starts taking those different compartments of the brain that were no longer working together and starts to synchronize them. And all of a sudden you see the front of the brain talking to the back of the brain. We've seen this so many times. You see the right side of the brain talking to the left side of the brain. And all of a sudden you see the brain starting to move into a more holistic state. And what sinks in the brain links in the brain. And all of a sudden, the person starts to feel connected to something greater. Are you with me still? And the moment that that happens, we can predict it now. The neuroscientists that come and study our work, we say, she's going to pop. What do you mean? Just watch. She's going to pop. And all of a sudden, the brain starts working together. And as they're no longer thinking and they're no longer putting their attention on objects and matter and people and things, and they're all of a sudden putting their attention within them, and that brain starts functioning in a holistic way, it starts to synchronize, and those brain waves become highly coherent. And all of a sudden, when that happens, that energy moves right into the heart. And at that time, we've measured this. All of a sudden, that person starts to feel whole. When that brain, that right hemisphere and that left hemisphere come together and it starts to synchronize, the union of polarities, the union of duality, the union of separation or opposites is called wholeness, it's called love. And the moment those two hemispheres come together, that energy breaks right into the heart, and the person's heart goes into super coherence. And the field around their body can be up to 8 feet wide, 9 meters wide. Now they're more energy than matter, more wave than particle, and they feel connected to something greater, and they would never try to control an outcome. They would never try to force an outcome. They would never try to predict an outcome, because they understand that all they have to do is put their attention on possibility, and their body's going to follow their mind to the unknown. And it's so amazing when this happens. You can see the person's heart go into coherence. You can see their brain go into coherence. And you can walk around while they're in the meditation. You can look at them like this. And there are tears of joy rolling down their face. They are being baptized by the divine. They are connected to the unified field. And the unified field is that quantum field that governs all the laws of nature. And when that occurs, they feel so whole, and so in love with life, and so in love with themselves, it's impossible to want. How can you want when you feel whole? You feel like you have everything. And that's the moment the magic happens over and over again. And there is a biological, neurological, genetic upgrade in that person when they connect to the unified field. And when you connect to the unified field, you will go from somebody to nobody, to everybody. From someone to no one, to everyone. From something to nothing, to everything. From somewhere to nowhere, to everywhere. And from sometime to no time, to every time. Isn't that the quantum field? And when that occurs, you will feel so connected and so whole. When you're in that state, you no longer experience separation. You no longer are saying, I need that. You're saying, I already have it. I don't really need anything. And when you're in that state, guess what happens? You go from selfish, driven by the hormones of stress, to selfless. And all of a sudden, that heart of yours begins to open, and the innate capacity in you to give, to take care of, to nurture, to serve is who we really are. And all of a sudden, you create a community of people that are in love with each other, and they understand the way that we survive is in cooperation, no longer in separation. Are you with me still? So imagine this. Imagine. I always say that the thought that you think is the electrical charge in the quantum field, and how you feel is the magnetic charge in the quantum field. And how you think and how you feel is broadcasting information into the field. Are you with me still? Come on. So then if you have drawn from your visible field of energy and turning it into chemistry, and you're more matter and less energy, you're separate from that field, it's going to take a long time for your dreams to occur. Yes or no? Because we live in a realm where there's infinite space. Look at, space goes on forever, yes? And the way we experience time as matter is we drag our body through space. Let's go get that. And if we drag our body through space, it's going to take time. So it's going to take time for you to get your dreams, because you're matter trying to change matter. Yes or no? But if you're in a realm, and Einstein said, I didn't say this, Einstein said it, the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. He didn't say the particle is the sole governing agency of the particle. Matter doesn't affect matter. Energy affects matter. Are you with me still? So then if you were in the field, then you should be able to connect to that energy and begin to exert greater effects on matter. Yes or no? But doesn't that mean you can't take your body there, right? Can't take your face. Can't take your weight. Can't take your vegetarian diet. Can't take any of it. You got to leave that all there. You got to go as consciousness. You got to go as an awareness. Yes or no? Now, we've measured this enough times. Imagine 750 people in a room, in an advanced workshop. They have overcome themselves. The first day is all about overcoming themselves. And we know that the energy in the room usually goes up slightly, because we measure it, or it goes down slightly, or it goes up a little bit. Because as people begin to break their emotional bonds with everyone and everything in their life, they're drawing energy from the field, and they're building their own vital field of energy. Yes or no? So then we should see the energy in the room drop. And we do, because, hey, if you're using your best friend to reaffirm your addiction to suffering, hello, am I getting too close? And then you're breaking that addiction, then you're gonna no longer be bound to that person energetically, and you're gonna start calling energy to build your own field. Because all of that suffering, all of those emotions, all that guilt, all that resentment is your creative energy that's tied up. Are you with me still? So there's no energy to create with. So then as you're drawing from this invisible field of energy, and you're breaking the bonds with your past, present reality, the energy of the room will drop. And we've measured it. But when people start to overcome themselves, all of a sudden they start to contribute to the field of energy in the room. Now all of a sudden their heart starts to become more coherent. How do we know that? We measured it. And I don't care how old you are. I don't care about your past. I don't care about your skin color, your gender. I don't care about any of that. When people finally open up this center and we teach them how to do it, and I just was in a long meeting with the Heart Math Institute that we partner with, and he keeps telling me, your results are supernatural. And I keep telling him, our students are supernatural. Imagine 750 people in the room. They're overcoming themselves. And they start activating this center. Their center of oneness, their center of wholeness, their connection to the unified field. And as the heart starts getting coherent and it starts creating elevated emotions like gratitude, people are feeling the emotions of their future that begin to create holism and oneness. And not just doing it for a few seconds. We want our students to sustain it, to make it a skill, to regulate internal states independent of the conditions in their external environment. And our students can hold it for 45 minutes. Imagine, the heart is in super coherence. When that heart starts to beat in rhythm, and they're sustaining it, all of a sudden that field starts to expand. That energy starts to become very coherent, like dropping a pebble in water, after pebble, and it's creating this wave. And that's the magnetic field around the body. Are you with me still? A measurable magnetic field. This is science. And that energy is a frequency. And all frequency carries information. So imagine then 750 people in the room opening their heart with an elevated emotion like the joy for existence, the love for life, the inspiration to be alive. Care, kindness, compassion, activating this center, the union of duality, and they're putting out a measurable, coherent magnetic field. And if all that frequency carries information, they lay the thought, the intent on that energy. And what if you had 50 people in the front of the room wearing heart rate monitors? And they're sitting there, and the rest of the room is sending the thought on that energy for the greatest good for those people sitting in the front of the room. You tell me then how majority of those people, how their hearts all go into coherence at the exact same time, on the exact same day, in the exact same meditation. You see, we are bound by that field of love and energy. Are you with me still? And that's what creates community. So then, when you start to open your heart, every single person that you are connected to, you begin to have an effect on, because you are entangled in energy. Are you with me still? So then, when that person starts to go into heart coherence, and they start producing a measurable, coherent field, and their brain is in coherence, there's research that shows that the heart and the brain are communicating not just by nerve cells and nerve tissue, that they're interfering and creating a coherent electromagnetic signature. And the heart begins to act like an amplifier, and it begins to affect the brain, becoming more coherent. The brain sends a more coherent message to the heart, and all of a sudden the person is in a whole different state of being. And that state of being is what I call the natural state of being. That's who we really are when we're not separate, when we're not warring, when we're not deceiving, when we're not competing, when we're not prejudiced, when we're not living in fear and hostility that creates separation. That's who we innately are. Are you with me still? So then, If your energy becomes coherent, and the person next to you's energy is coherent, and those two energy fields come together, and they start interacting, and they start interfering, they're going to create a bigger amplitude, a bigger wave. Yes or no? And the bigger the amplitude, the higher the energy. Yes or no? And then the higher the energy, then the more energy we should see in the room. Yes or no? And we've measured the energy in the room, and it always goes up in our events because the divine is present. And the person then becomes more energy than matter, more wave than particle. And now, we used to see, years ago, small changes in our events. You know, people having here and there some wonderful experiences. And now, it's happening in shorter and shorter amounts of time. And the higher the energy, the faster the frequency, the more connected they are to the unified field, the shorter amount of time it takes for it to occur. Are you with me still? And I can tell you without a doubt, I've looked at over 8,000 brain scans. I can tell you that when you analyze your life within some disturbing emotion that's created by the hormones of stress, you are going to make your brain worse. Because those emotions are the past, and you're thinking in the past. And if you're aroused by those stress hormones, you're going to drive it further and further into high beta. We've seen it over and over again. I can tell you without a doubt that your brain doesn't change your brain. I can tell you that the program doesn't change the program. The ego doesn't change the ego. The personality takes a long time to change the personality. It's only when you become pure consciousness. That's the moment you have an effect on matter. Are you with me still? And imagine then, we've seen this now, when a person truly connects to that unified field, and we can predict now almost when it's going to happen, if their brain is being measured, would you agree then you should see higher energy in the brain? Yes or no? So then when a person, listen to this, is connecting to that unified field where all possibilities exist and they no longer feel separate from their dreams, they feel connected to their dreams, all they have to do is put their attention and their awareness on what already exists. Yes or no? Come on, that bounced off some of you. Poke the person next to you, please. So if you're in a field where all possibilities exist, and you feel connected to everyone, everything, everywhere, every place, every time, then you don't have to try to create anything. All you have to do is pick it. Yes or no? Put your observation on it. Experience it. Become aware of it. So then imagine students, and I've labored for 3 years, almost 4 years, to have our students be able to sit in a meditation for an extended period of time and get beyond their bodies. And now our students, our advanced students, they can sit for as long as they want to sit. They know how to do it. They can change their brain waves in 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 9 seconds, 12 seconds. It's not like, hey, I'm getting to the quantum field before you. It's not like that. It's more like a skill, yes or no? And imagine we had all these wonderful, wonderful elders in our event in Tampa just a few months ago. And you can't tell me that you're too old to do this, because I saw them connect. And one lady in her late 70s said, I lost my spiritual virginity today. She connected. So imagine then, when the person truly connects to that field, and they begin to tap into a greater frequency, it should be measurable in their brain, yes or no? And imagine we're capturing amplitudes of energy that have never been recorded in the history of neuroscience. And we can say, when that occurs, she can't make her brain do that. It's happening to her. And while that's going on, we're doing all this amazing research. The brain is in deep, deep, deep delta. That person, their body is sound asleep, and their mind is turned way on. They are way in that autonomic nervous system. And when that occurs, they all of a sudden connect to a greater frequency. And all of a sudden we see these amplitudes of energy. It looks like a snowstorm on the EEG, on the brain scan. And I know that person is having a full-on sensory experience without their senses. They are having an inward experience that's greater than their trauma, their betrayal, their shock, their diagnosis, their fear. Whatever's happening between their ears is more real than anything that's happened in their external environment. Now think about this. If you're having a full-on sensory experience without your senses, what would happen right now if your senses were amplified by 30%? What if everything you were seeing, smelling, hearing, tasting, feeling, what if your senses were amplified by 25% right now? Would your awareness of reality be amplified by 25 or 30%? Yes or no? And if your awareness is amplified, then your consciousness is amplified. Yes or no? And you can't have consciousness without energy. They're married. So the energy of the brain goes up. And then the next thing you know, the inward experience rewires the brain in an instant. And it sends a new emotional signal, but it's not emotional. Emotions like fear and guilt and shame, they're slow energy. It's an elevated energy. It's not emotional, it's energetic. They're getting an electrical charge in their body. And they'll say, I was baptized in light. Light filled my entire body. And that is the moment they're getting a new emotional signal to the body. And the receptor sites on the outside of the cells are 100 times more sensitive to frequency and to energy than they are to chemistry. And in 1 second, that person is transformed. And that's what's happening now in our work. Are you with me still? So, I don't really want to argue quantum superimposition any longer. I don't want to talk about theory any longer because my heroes, the people that I want to be with, are people just like you. That I don't care about keynote lectures or conferences. I'm bored with them. I've outgrew them. I want to be with doers. Imagine, we were in Italy just a few months ago running an advanced workshop. I have a whole new team of neuroscientists that we're working with. And I was trying to get to these guys. They're physicians and researchers, and I'm trying to get to them to show them some of the crazy stuff, to prepare them. Like, get ready, this is going to get wild. And they're busy doing all their brain mapping and get everything organized, and we're going to meet for lunch, and I get to lunch early, and then I have to go, and then I'm leaving, and they're coming in. In 3 days, we're doing this. I'm going to get to you guys, And then after like 3 days, I'm like, nothing like an experience to cause a long-term memory. And I thought, the hell with it. Let them just have the experience, So, second day, Friday afternoon, I'm introducing a new meditation. And we have a room of 600 plus people. And I'm on the stage and I'm leading the meditation. And all of a sudden, I see all this commotion going in the back there. And they're screaming and yelling. And my staff comes up, you better get back there, So I go out the back here and I go along the hallway. And I come in the back and this is what they're saying, okay? There's a woman sitting in the middle of this meditation. And she's lit up. And when I mean lit up, she's having an experience. And the brain scientists are watching the screen and just saying she's having a massive seizure. Now, they've never seen anything like this before. Here's the humor in the situation. The woman who's sitting in the meditation is a physician from London. Are you with me? And she is connecting to the unified field, and she's getting an upgrade. And she is on the fringe of this incredible, loving intelligence, this intelligent love, and it begins to consume her, because that's what the quantum field is. It's intelligent love. And she made up her mind. This is what she said before she started that discipline. She said, I have to prove to myself that this is possible, so I'm going to do it for everybody in this room. I'm not going to do it for me. I'm going to do it for everybody in this room. I got to get beyond my analytical mind because I have very, very rigid training. You with me? So here she goes. She gives it everything she has. She surrenders. She trusts in the unknown. She becomes nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time. And then I say, you're in that infinite field of information. Just because you can't see something, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Put your awareness on that field. Pay attention to it. Surrender to it. Feel it. Experience it moment after moment and become more aware of it. So then if you put your awareness on your nose, it exists, yes? But if you don't have your awareness on it, it doesn't exist. Yes or no? Come on. So then if you don't have any awareness on the quantum field, it doesn't exist for you. Yes or no? Until you put your awareness on it. So I'm asking them to unfold deeper into the unified field and experience it. Put your awareness on it moment after moment, and certain people start to connect to that energy, that coherent energy. And all of a sudden, in 1 second, her entire brain goes into gamma. Not just regular gamma, which is super consciousness. We're talking about lots of high energy gamma. It looks like, crazy stuff, and the scientists are yelling back there, and I come back and they're going, she's having a seizure, she's having a seizure. I go like this, shh, 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 shh. Put my hand on my, quiet. And she's back there listening to them say, she's having a seizure. Now, she's a physician, and she's saying, oh, this is not a seizure. She's not saying that. She has to decide, do I listen to that or do I keep going? And she just said, I'm going. And so she surrenders into this experience, and she's sustaining this high level of gamma, coherent gamma, super consciousness. All of her awareness is on her inner world. In other words, she is aroused. Her sympathetic nervous system has switched on, and instead of switching on like being chased by a predator, instead of that energy being drawn from the field, the sympathetic nervous system is switching on, and it's taking all that energy stored in the body and it's driving it up to the brain. And when it goes on, all of a sudden the brain goes into gamma, and she's aroused from the inner experience. Are you with me? But it's not from a predator or from a danger. It's from the divine. And now she is in gamma. So I say to the scientist, shut up. Let her have the experience. Don't bother her. And get back here with that brain scan afterwards. So we have the break. They come back there, and they're all sweating, and they're freaked out. And, oh, my God, yeah. So they show me this sustained gamma. And then, my whole theory about the mystical is that energy has to reach the pineal gland. When the pineal gland gets activated, melatonin all of a sudden starts to produce derivatives, metabolites, that create the mystical experience. Chemicals that create a phospholuminescent energy in the brain, create hallucinations or vivid imagery, suppress the drives of the body, create antioxidants for healing, release chemicals like Valium that sedate the analytical mind. And the person's going to go mystical. They're going to go dimensional. And she went dimensional. And when we put up the three-dimensional imagery, the hologram of the brain, the entire pineal gland was on fire. It was on fire. I knew in that moment that what we were doing was correct. So we had the scientists come up on the stage. There's nothing like a good story. We bring the doctor up there. We show the brain scans. That scientists are like little kids, goofy and laughing. Ooh, I can't believe it. This is crazy stuff. It's not a seizure. I spend hours with these people every week and go to meetings, and they're yelling at each other. This can't be. I'm like, it can be. Well, it's not normal. I know it's not normal. You got to think out of the box. So she tells the story of how the divine connected to her and said, hey, in your imagery and profound information, I've always been with you. Welcome. And she was laughing and crying at the same time. And now this is not like a dream or visualizing. You understand this is a download. Yes? And with that information comes energy, because you can't separate the two. She's getting a very profound message. She's on the stage sobbing, telling the story. And then the event ends in Italy. And we all fly back to Seattle. And when I land in Seattle, one of the researchers is a physician. She's a brilliant lady. And she sends me a picture of this woman who's a physician from London. And she had eczema from the time she was 3 months old. Now, she's a doctor now, right? She did the diet, she did the cortisol, she did all the creams, she did all the things, took all the Benadryls, and of course, all of that was matter trying to change matter. Yes or no? And so she got a little improvement, and kept it at bay. So they sent me the picture of her arm with eczema covered all over her arm, and then 2 hands like this, and eczema all over her hands. Monday morning, they send me the next picture of her arm, and there's no eczema on her arms anywhere. None. And no eczema except a little bit on the outside of her hand. So then, if you connect to that unified field of oneness and wholeness, then wholeness and oneness should be reflected in your biology, yes or no? And would you agree the more you surrender and get out of the way and get beyond your body and your face and your skin color and your culture and your problems and your past and your future, and you trust in that unknown, the deeper you go into it, the faster the frequency, the shorter amount of time it should take to produce effects in your life. Yes or no? And people who do this work always say the same thing. It came out of nowhere. And I always say to them, that's because you created it in nowhere. Something appeared out of nothing. That's because you created it from nothing.
Lay down.
It happened in no time. I know. You created it in no time. Yes or no? So then, the divine in you, in closing, has always been present with you. Yes or no? It's an omnipresent intelligence that's loving you into life. Yes? And so there's your outer environment, and if you want to hide the divine anywhere really well in a human being, you put it within them, because they'll look everywhere else for it. Yes? So it's a presence, yes or no? And it's standing here and it's waiting. And you know when someone's present in your life with you because they're paying attention to you, yes or no? And you know when they're not present with you because they're not paying attention to you, yes or no? So imagine this presence that's waiting for you to do your meditation, and you go like this, you're doing your meditation like that. Meditate today. And it's going like, are you kidding me? Oh my God, I don't know if I can do. That's what you're bringing to it. And then while it's standing there waiting, you're thinking, I got to take care of that person. I got to check that email. I got to do this thing. And all your attention is on your outer world, and it's going, hello, I'm over here. And then would you agree that the moment you become nobody, no one, no thing, no where, and no time, you're taking your attention off somebody, someone, something, someplace, sometime, and you're becoming nobody? Now you're looking at it, yes or no? And you walk through that eye of the needle. Once you get through it, then there's more. And if you can unfold deeper into the unified field, and as you move closer towards it, would you agree then you'll experience greater degrees of wholeness and oneness and less separation? That means you won't have to try to create your dreams. All you have to do is become aware that they already exist and experience them. Yes or no? So then the closer you get to it, the shorter amount of time it should appear in your life. Are you with me still? Come on. And what if you were to connect with it? Truly connect with it. Would you agree then you will become more willful because it has an amazing will? Come on. You become more loving. It's a loving intelligence. Yes or no? You become more giving. It's a giver of life. Yes or no? You become more forgiving. It's forgiven you millions of times. Yes or no? You become more conscious. It's a consciousness. Yes or no? You'll become more mindful. It has an infinite mind. Its nature will become your nature. Its mind will become your mind. And people then in your life will say, something's up with him. He must have changed his medication today. Because as Dawson said, your nervous system is the greatest pharmacist in the world. And that common people just like you are doing the uncommon. And this day-to-day is to inspire you to begin to practice it in your life and to draw with a community of people that are actually doing it. And that they carve out a little time out of their busy day to present themselves to the world as a greater ideal. And if you can sustain and maintain a modified state of mind and body your entire day and keep your energy up, get ready, because something unusual is going to happen in your life. It's the law. And I know it from experience, and I've witnessed it too many times. And it will come in a way that you least expect. Why? Because if you can expect it, it's nothing new. If you can predict it, it's more of the same. It's got to be a surprise. It's got to rock your world. It's got to catch you off guard, and it has to leave no doubt that what you did inside of you produced some effect outside of you. And when you can correlate the changes you made inside of you with the effect you produced outside of you, you're going to pay attention to what you did, and you're going to do it again. And that's when we go from being a victim to being a creator. Thanks for listening.